The Cursed Book. More than 60 forbidden stories that YouTube wouldn't let the channel publish. Link in the comments. Buy it now. The sign was old, weathered, and faded, barely legible against the encroaching darkness. Read the rules before entering this circus, it warned in uneven, fraying letters. An eerie sense of foreboding seeped from the very fabric of the text, mingling with the thickening fog that clung to the ground. As the moonlight caught the edges of the sign, it seemed to shimmer with a sinister gleam. The faint sound of laughter drifted through the mist, not the joyful kind, but something more unsettling. Ignoring the sign's cryptic message, a brave or perhaps foolish soul pushed past the barriers into the unknown. The first rule was deceptively simple: no loud noises, a curious stipulation for a circus, one might think, but the true danger lay in the silence that followed. The moment the uninvited guest shouted in excitement, the atmosphere shifted. It felt as though the air grew thicker, heavier, almost suffocating. The audience, shadowy and distorted, turned their gaze with chilling precision. The laughter that once floated in the mist now turned to an ominous chorus, echoing with a cruelty that suggested it was not meant for entertainment, but as a harbinger of something far more sinister. Do not make eye contact with the performers, the second rule warned. Yet, the eyes of the performers seemed to pull at one's very soul. Their gazes were penetrating, unfathomable, as though they could see into the deepest recesses of one's mind. The more one tried to avoid looking at them, the more it felt as though invisible strings tugged one closer. The performers' faces were masks of eternal despair, their movements unnatural and jerky, like marionettes controlled by unseen hands. The deeper one ventured into the circus, the more intense the gaze became, locking onto you with an unholy grip. The third rule forbade the audience from leaving before the end of the show. As the tent's flaps were pulled back, revealing the macabre scene inside, the reality of this rule became painfully clear. Once inside, an oppressive force seemed to close in, the exit melting away into the encroaching shadows. The unsettling feeling of being trapped took hold, a creeping sense of dread, as though the circus itself was a living, breathing entity intent on ensnaring its victims forever. The performers move with an unnatural grace, their eyes never leaving their audience, as if ensuring that none would escape. No contact with the animals, the fourth rule stated. Yet the animals were no ordinary beasts. They had an unsettling, almost human intelligence in their eyes, and their movements were both graceful and predatory. The lion's gaze followed you with a knowing look, and the elephants seemed to communicate in a language of their own. Attempting to interact with them felt like provoking ancient forces. The animals seemed to harbor a malevolent presence, as though they were guardians of a dark secret hidden within the circus. The fifth rule was a chilling one: never go behind the curtains. Curiosity tugged relentlessly at those who encountered this warning. Behind the curtains lay not just the backstage, but the heart of the circus itself. Those who dared to peek reported seeing things that defied logic, grotesque scenes of twisted reality and fragmented dreams. The curtain, though seemingly innocent, acted as a barrier between the known and the unknown. Passing beyond it was akin to stepping into a realm where nightmares bled into reality, where the very fabric of one's sanity was put to the test. Rule 6 demanded silence during the performance. As the circus show began, a sense of unease grew. The tense interior seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own, responding to the heartbeat of the audience. Every whispered word or stifled gasp seemed to cause an immediate and unsettling reaction. The performers' movements became erratic, as though disturbed by the disruption. The silence wasn't just a rule, it was a necessity for maintaining the delicate balance of the circus's otherworldly existence. Breaking it meant invoking something far darker than anticipated. Do not question the ringmaster, the seventh rule proclaimed. The ringmaster, clad in an extravagant yet grotesque costume, held an aura of unnerving authority. His eyes, dark and unfathomable, seemed to pierce through to one's very essence. Any attempt to question his authority or the nature of the circus was met with an icy silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. The ringmaster's voice, though rarely heard, carried an unspoken threat, a reminder that some things were better left unexamined. The questions that lingered were like shadows, growing darker and more menacing with every passing moment. The eighth rule was a particularly disturbing one. You are never alone. At first, this seemed a comforting notion, but soon the reality became apparent. The feeling of being watched was relentless. Shadows danced just beyond the corner of vision. Whispers filled the air, and the sensation of invisible eyes scrutinized every move. The circus was alive with a malevolent presence that thrived on the isolation of its visitors. It became clear that the rule was not about physical companionship, but about the psychological torment of never being truly alone. Respect the boundary lines, the ninth rule warned. These boundaries, however, were not physical but spectral. They demarcated areas where reality seemed to unravel. Crossing these lines led to grotesque distortions of reality, where time and space seemed to fold in on themselves. Distorted figures lurked in these forbidden zones, their shapes constantly shifting, their intentions unclear. The very nature of the circus seemed to warp and twist in these areas, presenting a nightmarish landscape where every step taken could plunge one deeper into madness. The 10th rule read, never touch the trinkets. The trinkets, scattered haphazardly around the circus grounds, seemed innocuous enough. Colorful baubles, curious artifacts, and ornate curios. However, touching them triggered a cascade of horrifying events. The trinkets were vessels of dark magic, each one a portal to an unspeakable horror. The moment one made contact, visions of dread and despair flooded the mind, and the object seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Each touch brought with it a new layer of terror, a new nightmare that entwined itself with one's own reality. Follow the rhythm of the music, the 11th rule advised. The music, a haunting and discordant melody, seemed to seep into the very bones. It was an unsettling blend of sweet and sinister tones that played continuously. Following its rhythm was not about moving to the beat, but about sensing one's actions with the grotesque choreography of the circus. Disobeying this rhythm led to an immediate and terrifying response from the performers, whose faces twisted into grimaces of hatred and malice. The music was a hypnotic force that dictated the flow of the circus's dark events. The 12th rule, no photographs allowed, seemed straightforward, yet its purpose was far darker. The prohibition on capturing images was not just a matter of policy, but of preservation. The circus existed in a realm where reality was fluid and images could trap souls. Photographs taken inside the circus showed not just the distorted funhouse mirrors, but glimpses of things that should never be seen. The act of capturing an image was like freezing a moment in a nightmare, forever trapping the subject within the circus's malignant influence. Do not enter the tent of illusions, the 13th rule warned. This tent, shrouded in a dense, unnatural mist, beckoned with an almost irresistible allure. Those who dared to enter reported experiencing a disorienting reality where every sense was manipulated. The illusions were not mere tricks, but distortions of reality itself, bending the world into grotesque and nightmarish shapes. The tent was a place where one's deepest fears and darkest desires came alive, feeding off the terror of those who dared to enter. The 14th rule was a chilling reminder: beware the clowns. Far from the jovial figures one might expect, these clowns were nightmarish parodies of their cheerful counterparts. Their smiles were wide, the why stretching to an impossible degree, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Their eyes were vacant, yet they seemed to follow one with a malignant intent. The clown's antics were not meant for amusement, but for the spreading of a deeper, more insidious fear. Their laughter, though seemingly jovial, carried an undercurrent of pure, unadulterated dread. Stay away from the center ring, the 15th rule read. The center ring, often the focal point of the circus's events, was a place of unnerving and incomprehensible occurrences. The ground within this ring seemed to writhe and pulse as though alive. Performers within this ring moved with a fluidity that defied the natural laws of physics, their actions forming an eerie and disturbing dance. The very air seemed to shimmer with a malignant energy, a palpable sense of danger that warned all to stay clear or face an unspeakable fate. The 16th rule, do not engage with the audience, was a final, desperate plea. The audience, shadowy and indistinct, seemed to be part of the circus's dark mechanism. Interaction with them led to horrifying consequences, where their whispered conversations turned into dissonant echoes in one's mind. Their eyes, empty and hollow, reflected nothing but a disturbing void. Each engagement with the audience seemed to pull one deeper into the circus's malignant influence, blurring the line between spectator and participant in a nightmarish performance. Follow the rules. Until next time, thank you.